Welcome everyone to ARTIVISM, the power of art for social transformation. Today we have with us Anne Warburton. Anne Warburton is a fiber artist based in Canada. Her focus these past 3 years has been on the world around us, where we can find both man-made and nature's lines, straight, twisted, imperfect, tattered, threadbare. There is beauty in these time-worn lines and a need today for moments of awe and wonder and self-reflection. Her fiber art interpretations begin with photographing these elements close up to capture the artistic perspective of the affected areas: rust, corrosion, decay, weathered, crumbling, then assembling and altering layers of fabrics and other materials to symbolize the changing layers of her subjects. Anne is an active member of her local fiber arts community. As co-chair of the Out of the Box Fiber Artists, she's a teacher and founder of Fiber 15, a community fiber arts group and artist trained in the expressive arts. Welcome, Ms. Warburton.
Thank you so much, and I'm delighted to be part of this initiative. I'm going to share my screen here now. There we go. Can you see that okay? I wanted to start off with this picture of the spider web. I chose to put this up on the screen because I think it's a wonderful example of the natural art that's out there. I'm not a huge fan of spiders, but their webs they're just amazing architecture. So when I made this piece, it's painted canvas, and then I put beading on it to create the web. When I made this piece, I studied the webs that were actually in our yard, because I wanted to see what happened when they were damaged and how they rebuilt them. And that way I felt I could make this piece of art more natural looking. And also to see the lines, if you can see my cursor here, where the lines go off to support the web on the walls, on chairs, what have you. I also wanted to see how that worked. So there you have it, the first piece. So yes, as they said, I'm a fiber artist. Some refer to it as textile artists, and the difference between the two is simply that fiber also includes paper. So it's pretty much the same. I am trained in the expressive arts, which includes music, visual art, play therapy, journaling, poetry, and writing, which means that when I work on my art, I understand the benefits of how it helps us, whether we're stressed or we just need to find a better place or what have you, or just for enjoyment. I've added on my list too that I am an amateur photographer because a lot of my work is based on photography first. And then from there, I'll create my pieces. And this picture here, incidentally, is based on, it was during a hike I was on last winter, snowshoeing, and we came across this old farm where they had left all kinds of fascinating implements, farm implements, old cars, an old fridge, stove, and so on. And the rust just attracted me, and I had to get a whole bunch of photos because I felt that it would lead to new art down the road. I'll talk first about this series that I made a few years ago, The Hands of Time. It started off because I found that hands, especially hands of the elderly, were very beautiful. They're very artistic. I mean, they're full of lines, scars. They might be what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit deformed because of arthritis. They're wrinkled. There's age spots. They're full of memories, those hands. There's so many stories in there and so much wisdom. And I wanted to capture that artistry, that hand artistry in a series of works. So these were embroideries that I did on paper. They are women's hands from over the age of 80, and they were 4 different women who were very creative. One was a historian, one did a lot of embroidery pieces, one was a musician, and one was a painter. So I heard their stories. I sat and talked with them for hours and taking photos of their hands, and eventually put together these pieces, and also wrote little bios on them as well. And I think their stories were just fascinating. So this was sort of my first foray into really embracing that natural art around us. Then I want to talk about a class that I took a few years ago. It was an art class. The main part of it was focusing on wabi-sabi, the philosophy of that being that there is beauty in the decay and the corrosion, that everything is impermanent, it's imperfect, it's incomplete, and there's that whole life cycle from birth right through to death. And where the example I've put here is the withered rose is beautiful too. It doesn't have to be that perfect rose when it's open, but the withered rose. This photo was a rose in our garden that never did open, and yet it has such beauty to it. And that's the kind of piece I look at and then often create art from. And a lot of finding the natural art out there is really learning to look, to see what's around us, to slow down, to really look, and not just pay attention to our feet as we're walking around, but to look up, to look at the sides and so on. This picture here was a peony, and the petals had fallen off. And when I saw it, and it's kind of that scooped area where there's leaves, and it's almost like the bowl where the petals used to sit. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was very much in awe. And in the world today, with everything that's been going on, I think there's a real importance for us to find this kind of beauty, this kind of awe, and really embrace it and really appreciate it, show our gratitude for it. These are just 2 other examples, things that I found in my yard just about a month ago. The photo on the left is what's left of a coneflower, or some people will call it echinacea. It's so pretty with all its spikes. And the one on the right is I believe it was a black-eyed Susan, and it came as part of a display that I had put out as autumn hit here. And again, it comes back to just looking for things like this, looking up close. I sometimes use the macro image on my camera to see beyond what we might see at first glance. As part of the same class, one of the things that our instructor suggested we do was spend a month photographing nature, objects, whatever around us, whatever was capturing our attention, and write haiku related to that object. And I ended up doing this for 50 days. I really enjoyed it, posted it every day, like on Facebook, it's in my blog. And it brought me to a place of meditation as I was wandering around my yard or going on walks or hikes. And also while I was writing the haiku. And a lot of that was because I wasn't just looking to describe the object, what it looked like, its colors or whatever. I was trying to go a little bit deeper to identify my impressions about it, my feelings about it. And part of that became my own reflection on how I felt about things around me. And I think that's a big part of where our self-reflection comes in when we're looking for that art in nature. And it helps us to grow, and we tend to show a lot more gratitude for things around us then. In this case, this was just simple garden pots, and I could have just left it at that, but I wanted to get into the words and how I felt about it. And it was about getting the hands dirty in the soil and about coaxing the plants to grow and seeing them grow, and that whole life cycle again. This was another example that I found in the yard, this old pot. This metal pot, and it was the rust and the cracks at the top that really got my attention. And this, again, this appreciation for nature, for the artistic side of nature, often will help us develop new interests. And in this case, this is what really got this haiku and photography is really what got me into doing a lot more photography. And it really got me into the wabi-sabi philosophy and really appreciating what is out there, and any object, whether it's natural or man-made, and where it is in its life cycle, from, you know, the newborn and those beautiful little hands right through the elderly and those beautiful hands as well. They're very different, but there's so much in both that that we can be appreciative of. And then this is another another tin that had a lot of rust and pieces almost falling off. And again, another haiku that I wrote. And this one actually led then to my next series, which I called Lineations. And I had a solo show a year ago, and lineations being all the lines that we see, whether it's in nature or the natural world, the time-worn lines, the threadbare, all those words that you heard earlier. So when COVID hit and we went into lockdown, the silver lining for me was that I was able to work on the art and develop the series and create and experiment and play. And when I would go out for walks to get exercise, I would really look around, and the more I saw that I could possibly make into art, the more I saw, the more the ideas flowed, if that makes any sense. So I went from creating these little haikus to creating this series. And this picture here, and this was part of the poster for my show, which took place last year. This picture was based on this piece of rust. It was the colors that really attracted me, which I then tried to recreate in this piece. And I had fun with it by adding these little nails and whatnot, just to add interest. And this is full of stitching and layers of fabric, which I sewed together and then cut back and slashed. And I really was able to have a lot of fun with this and grow my art at this stage. And it gave me new connections, and it really supported my creative side, and helped me move forward as an artist as well, I think. So some of the other pieces that I made during COVID, and again for this show, the one on the left was based on one of those Zen gardens that I had seen at the Montreal Botanical Gardens. And I just love what they do with the rakes and the patterns that they make in the sand. So I recreated one of the photos I had taken into this art piece, and I like to include natural pieces when I can. And this one has little stones in it. The piece on the right was based on, I was snowshoeing one day, and we've had a real problem here with the emerald ash borer attacking our ash trees and killing them. And the bark, when it comes off, these ash borers leave the most beautiful patterns in the bark. And again, that's the silver lining. It's so sad about the trees, but the silver lining is these beautiful patterns that they leave on the trees. So I took lots of photos, and then I created this art piece to demonstrate what was going on. And again, it's layers of fabric sewn together and cut then in many areas, and ripped back and torn, and lots of stitching added. And the next two, actually over my shoulder here, it's the same piece on the left. It was based on a wall that was made all of wood, and I could see the tree rings, and they're just so beautiful. So and there was a knot in the middle. So I tried to recreate that. And again, it's the layers of fabric and burning them back and so on, and cutting them. And the one on the right was based on a hosta leaf, which actually was at its peak. And beautiful. And if you can see in here, there's little beads as well, which I added because the photo and the time of day I took it, there was still a little bit of dew on the hosta. So I tried to represent that artistic side by adding some beads. Then this one, the picture on the right is a detail of the one on the left. So as I was going for walks in the neighborhood, I started to notice in the winter the icicles that were coming off the roofs and how they would drip down. And when the afternoon sun especially was shining on it, you would get this sort of glittery look. You can kind of see the glittery look in the picture on the right. So on the left, I used some old cedar boards in the back, and then the top part represents just the waves of snow on the roof. And then of course, these bits coming down as icicles. And it was one of those cases where I was really challenged making this particular piece and experimenting with different materials that would look like kind of like icicles, or maybe not so much look like, but that I could interpret to represent icicles. And I played with different types of materials, and these are all repurposed materials, by the way. But I ended up using these different laces. There's 2 different kinds of laces in here, but underneath there's almost a translucent, it looks like a plastic, and sometimes you'll get it if you've mail ordered something off the internet, and it comes wrapped in this thin sort of plastic protective material. And it worked perfectly because it was a little bit translucent. It also showed off these lacier materials. And then I added the glitter glue where the sun would shine onto these icicles. So, and again, nature's artistry. I mean, this one really amazed me, and I think I must have taken 20 different pictures around the neighborhood. But I think most of the time we don't really notice that kind of thing. And it comes back to that looking and seeing, and then, you know, really appreciating what you see. Seeing what, and at different times of day and different types of light. There's the morning light, but that afternoon light shining on those icicles really made the difference. And moving on, this one on the left is, it was based on a crumbling stone and brick wall that I saw in Kingston, Ontario. And I just thought it was beautiful. And it actually had the reds and yellows and blues in the wall. So I wanted to represent that. It's, again, repurposed fabrics, but I just thought the crumbles were so beautiful, and we don't often see, it was a very old wall, it was over 100 years old. We don't very often see those kinds of walls anymore. The picture on the right is a portion of a fabric bowl that I had made. It's a little bit blocked there, but it's one of my favorite pieces, actually, which is why I included it. I wanted to share a quote with you as well that really resonated with me. It really captured how I was feeling about creating things, about making things. And it's a quote by Peter Korn, it's K-O-R-N, and he authored a book called Why We Make Things and Why It Matters. And this Peter Korn he's a furniture maker. He makes all his furniture from wood. And the book is about his journey from when he started out when he was young through the years. And I think he's now in his 60s, but he covered all the different challenges that he overcame, but he really had a good sense of what it takes to make things and why we make things. So I've got the quote here. The central idea that the primary motive for doing creative work is self-transformation had been gestating for some time. For me, it would become the key to understanding craft, art, identity, the nature of mind. Isn't that good? I think it's great. Moving on, this past spring, so one of my fiber art groups is called Fiber 15, and 10 of us ended up having a show in a gallery this past June that we called Conversations. And each one of us really had a very different interpretation of conversations. But I think in each case, it was about slowing down and being fully present. There was a lot of reflection, I think, for each of us in this show and on the pieces that we made. Some were based on nature, but a lot were also based on our own past, on where we have come from, where maybe did our interest in creating art come from, connections to the past, to our ancestors, who are we? And so this piece I had created, I used a lot of eco-printed materials, these old fabrics that I felt some of my ancestors would have had, those that were on the farms. And I eco-printed some of them and I rust dyed others, which was a lot of fun. And I rust dyed with a lot of nails, which they would have used on the farm as well. So I created this piece, which for me was a really good one because it forced me to slow down and think about how to use natural materials, or how to use materials, period, for rust dyeing, how to make old materials that are threadbare, that are worn, that are ripped, how to turn them into an art piece. Another piece I had in that show, it's the one on the left, which I called Remnants. And for this one, I used old fabrics. And to me, those are they're very artistic as well, because they're old, they're soft, they're used, they're stained, they might be ripped. So I turned a lot of old table linens and aprons and jeans into this piece. Some of them I had eco-printed, some of them I had rust dyed as well. And I put them into this piece. And I decided that what was happening is all of those memories and stories that are embedded in these old textiles became a new piece. It's a sharing, they're embedded now. I ended up adding white paint and white gesso over the entire thing so that the colors were more muted, but also so that they kind of combined and so that it made what's the word I'm looking for? I guess more a combined look. And I was thinking of things like a tablecloth and how many conversations, has it been witnessed to? What kind of foods were served on the table over the years? And that kind of artistry, I really like bringing into a new piece, repurposing all those pieces. So the picture on the right is just a detail. If you can see my mouse here, it would be the detailed area of this picture on the left. And you can see the different laces and the different colors. And again, kind of brought together by layers of paint and gesso. And another quote by Peter Korn, another one that really, really resonated with me and helped me kind of stop and analyze why I make and why certain things attract me, and it helped me know that I am on my right path. Again, that self-reflection coming in, right? So anyway, so the quote is, whatever our motivations may be, the bottom line is always the same. We engage in the creative process to become more of whom we might become. We may make things because we enjoy the process, but our underlying intent inevitably is self-transformation. And I think that's very true. So this past summer, I had the opportunity to participate in an artist residency. It was in the wilderness in the province of Quebec, and it was through an organization called Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, and it was their Ottawa Valley chapter. So we spent about a week camping. A few artists came and went, but we were together for most of the week camping. There was no electricity, there was no running water, there was no Wi-Fi. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity just to unplug, to be one with nature, to see all the sights there were to see, and to make art. The goal for the artist was to be inspired by the natural beauty of the area and create art. The goal of the organization was to help, for us to help create awareness of the importance of parks and protected areas, to help stop climate change and loss of biodiversity. They took us on hikes, they took us on canoe trips. We had time to wander around our camp and visit different lakes, go through the forests, but mostly we had time just to really sit and contemplate what we were seeing and to be able to capture the magic of the area, and to interpret our art later on into why nature is important. And the artistry we were seeing out there was just amazing. It was an untouched area, and they did, although people would go up for maybe winter activities, for snowing, for skiing, for swimming, hiking, and so on. And it was right on a river too. We were close to a river that had beautiful falls and rapids. There were some areas that really, really touched me. And this picture is, it was from a damaged piece of bark. So I recreated this into fiber art, and I actually included some birch bark in there that had fallen off the tree. So I felt I was able to use that. I would never take it off the tree directly, but it had fallen onto the ground. So this is one picture that I'm very, very pleased with. So the magic of the area. This was one of the trails we were on, and you can see all these amazing lichens in here. And my feeling, and some others it sort of felt the same, was that if fairies do actually exist, this is where they live. It was such a magical area. It was so great. And another reason that we felt that it was a magical area was these little tiny lichens. And these are not even an inch high, but they were just adorable. They're called pixie cup lichens. And this really brought home for me why we really need awe and wonder and magic in our world, especially these days. These were just so amazing. And this is how I interpreted that piece, these little lichens, into a little piece of art. One of the things we will do is donate a piece of art back as part of their fundraisers. So sell a piece of art. So this piece I had posted, I think on my Facebook page, and a friend of mine saw it. And so it's now sold. So now I will be making another one. I've started a larger one that I will donate back. But it's this kind of beauty that really, and seeing the destruction and things like that piece of bark that I had picked up and that I remade. These things really, we need that magic. We need this awe. I also got into looking at a lot of patterns. This was just one of the patterns that was in the rapids along the river where we were hiking one of the days. And another part that I then reinterpreted into some of the art. And again, it's just that magic. It's that looking around and seeing what's out there, and appreciating the beauty. This was, the photo on the left was part of the rock canyon wall just below where the falls came down, and I sat and sketched that one day and then interpreted it into art over here. And if you can see this piece on the left, and that's a little piece of stone that I picked up because I felt it's so well represented, and I wanted a little something to I think appreciate even more and to include in this art piece. And back to the rust and corrosion and decay, the photo on the left was a metal bucket that was in our camp where we were staying. There was an old barn that had all kinds of amazing rusted implements. So I got this photo and then interpreted it into this one on the right, where I repurposed old blue jeans and lace. And again, I rust dyed the lace. So layers together, cut them back, added some paint, and you can just, whoops, you can just see, I think on the right here, I added a rusty nail as well. And these are being mounted as well onto old barnwood. And this piece of metal was a scrap piece of metal we found in the camp, just down from where our tents were. There was a hill going down to the lake, and somebody at some point had dumped all kinds of old stuff. I don't know, maybe there's no garbage pickup or dump up there, I don't know, but there was all this old metal and it was starting to fall apart. So I rescued a few pieces, and actually we did spend a little bit of time cleaning up some of the mess too, but I wanted to include this one into a piece of art. So, and again, it's old materials that are rust dyed, and some of these materials too went through the composter where they have the darker colors, like up here in the top right. But I thought it was a good piece to create, to represent what happens that we don't want to see out there. This one is based on, this is not having to do with the camp anymore, but this was one of my favorite pieces that I made last year. And I had an old piece of copper pipe that was really corroded, but the colors really captured my attention. So again, I turned it into an art piece, and it comes back to that beauty around us. And I'm finding as I make all of these things, and as I'm sitting sewing or stitching or adding paint or whatever, I really get pulled into what has happened with these pieces and the beauty, and I see that, and I get into a really reflective mood, but I find that it's for me, it can be, I slow down, you know, and when we get stressed and anxious and stuff, then you really slow down, you breathe slower, and it's very healthy for us to be in that kind of place. So I think actually that's the end of my presentation. I have just one more slide where I've listed my blog and Instagram, and this is my website. And the website actually has all the haiku and photos that I included as well. So yeah, that's it. I will stop sharing at this point. And here we are.
Thank you, Anne. They were beautiful.
Well,
Very beautiful pieces. You inspired me to look into wabi sabi.
Yeah.
And the philosophy of, I love the idea of finding beauty in everything, right? It's almost like we've been conditioned to see the negative, right? Focus on the negative, right? And it will help if we focus more on the beauty of things. The lichens are amazing. I have to agree with you about the whole fairies. If there are fairies living, they would live in there. I don't know if you've ever seen Luna moths.
No, I haven't.
Luna moths only live for about 1 week. They are very rare. So if you do see one, you're very fortunate. You Google them, it's Luna. They look like fairies. I mean, I saw one in the screen of our window in upstate New York many years ago, and it looked like a fairy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
How people were inspired to write stories when there wasn't television and internet and everything else, right? You're using your imagination more. So yes, thank you. Just as a reminder, next Monday, November 14th at 4:30 p.m. EST, Miss Monica Mayor will be zooming in from Mexico City, and she will present some of her long-term feminist art projects. Some of these works include the clothesline that was Miss Mayor's project, right? That was later adapted in the US again as the clothesline. Araya Art Crit, Chronicles and Debates in the Visual Arts, 1991 to 2016. Archivum, Feminist Masterworks of Art, 2012 to 21. Abductor Motherhoods, 2012 to 2019, and I don't celebrate or commemorate wars 2008 to 2019. For more information on this and all of the series past and upcoming events, please visit us at artivism@adelphi.edu. Follow us on Facebook, Artivism for Shared Humanity, the same for Instagram. And you can watch all of our past presentations on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube at Artivism for the number 4 Shared Humanity. Any questions, any comments from the audience today?
I see there is a comment in the chat. Thank you for inspiring presentation. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I will add actually the retreat I was on this summer, although it was only, I think, about 3 hours away from where I live, the climate was so different. Like here where I am in Ottawa, there are some lichens and so on, but to go up there, it was so different and was almost more like a rainforest. So it's easy to find things that are relatively close to home. Don't really have to travel too far to find amazing things out there.
I do have one question. Do you ever create wearable art?
I have a little bit, but it's not really my thing as much. Maybe one day it will be, but I know there are some artists who will take what they've created and have it printed on, you know, maybe a scarf or a mug or something like that. And that's something I've kind of thought about doing. But maybe one day I'll have artsy scarves. Who knows?
I have boxes and trunks full of my mother's old tablecloths, linens, lace, all sorts of things. So you've maybe kind of given me that bug today to get
Those
in.
are a treasure. They're just a treasure.
They are.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah. And I know there's people who are concerned when we remake some of those things into something else, but you know, if they're not going to be used, if they're not going to last.
It's better than being in a basement in a box someplace.
Exactly. And keep them out of the trash. Like just use them, remake them into something. That's wonderful when we can do that. Yeah.
Carolina?
Thank you for this inspiring presentation. What I was thinking about was the hands at the beginning.
Yes.
And how you compare, like, well, not compare, like put next to each other the newborns, and right next to it, the hands of elderly people, right?
Yeah.
And like a comment, or, you know, maybe a question for you might be like, how can we push our society into admiring all stages of life, right? How can we change that perception of what, let's say, the television or commercialism sends to us of what is beauty, what is not, right? As you've commented in your presentation all throughout, that there is beauty in the things that we might not think, like, for example, that rose that you presented that didn't open up, but it's still so gorgeous, right? What would be, you know, something from your art practice that could be applied in a larger scope of how we go about everyday life?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. And I guess there's so many different ways we can put those messages out there, between social media and in-person shows and virtual shows and so on. The challenge is reaching people always, right? But you know, if everybody did one little bit, it all helps. Somebody out there is listening. Yeah, it's a great question. And I was really glad that I had done that series. And the women all were given a copy as well of the piece that I embroidered. And hopefully they'll pass those down to their families. And hopefully the families keep them and appreciate that beauty as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, growing old is a blessing.
It is.
It's
a blessing. And yeah. And all those women had so many wonderful stories to share, and the wisdom, and you know, when I think about it, there's so many retirement homes and senior groups around, it would be really easy to reach out to those groups and through them to their families with some of these types of things, and create that kind of awareness. Maybe I should start a new hand series. There's a few local seniors groups here and lots of retirement residences, so it would be fun to do again. And just to sit and chat with these people. It's wonderful.
Yes, because it brings back the dignity.
It does. It really does.
It's
Yeah.
you could be found in a state that is not your choice. It's just something that happens, right? We all don't know if we get to those ages how our bodies might mechanically work, correct? So it's not a choice per se. And bringing an artist like you to acknowledge our beauty, right, at that age, our history, our like our legacy.
Yeah.
It brings back that dignity of a human being.
It really does. Yeah. One of the most effective shows I did ever see actually was in a little town in Atlantic Canada, where they had taken photos of a lot of the residents and wrote up a small bio, and they put them in their museum. And I just thought it was absolutely beautiful, and just seeing this condensed story of these people and all that they had done for their community. And I think when I think about it, I think that's probably why I did the hand series, because that had such an impact on me. And that would be easy to do anywhere. Take photos and put their photos up and write a little bio.
And it's also acknowledging everyone's work, because as I think it was said in the past ARTIVISM presentation, if those prior generations wouldn't have sown the ground, the fruit wouldn't be there today for you to eat it, right?
That's true.
So it wouldn't be fair for you to be enjoying that fruit and disregarding how it got there.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. More food for thought. Thank you.
Now, and I wonder if all our audience members might have any other suggestions or comments or food for thought, as you put it.
I didn't include my email in there, but they can easily reach me through the website.
Wonderful, good, good. Here in ARTIVISM, we also have a tradition of asking the presenters of one key takeaway for the presentation. But that key takeaway has to be action driven for the audience that is present now here watching us, but also that will be watching this video, in the YouTube channel. What would that be for you, Ms. Warburton?
I think when you're out and about, whether you're out walking or you're in a shopping center or whatever, to take that time to look around, to really look and see the beauty out there. Maybe it's just going to be picking up fruits and vegetables, in the local produce area or whatever. But really take that time to look, slow down and take that time. I think that's one of the healthiest things for us.
Thank you so much, Ms. Warburton. This was so beautiful. Thank you for finding beauty in the world. Thank you to Dr. Stephanie Lake from Adelphi University. Adelphi University, our sponsor, along with Sing for Hope, Gottesman Libraries, a Teachers College, Columbia University. Hope to see you all back here next week. Have a good evening. Thank you again.
You too. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you. It's been our pleasure.
Okay, thank you.